welcome back everybody who was here yesterday, and I hope we have some new people as well who are joining us today. The slide will come up in a moment, but I'll say it anyway. Please remember to mute your mics when you're not actually speaking, and when presentations are being made, please turn your camera off as well. It will just make a much cleaner video for when we want to put it onto our YouTube channel and as a record. And it's just less distracting for all of us. See my hands moving around. We can try and do without that when other people are presenting. So we will tell you when to put your cameras back on, and everything will be great. So after yesterday's really inspiring presentations, I had so much fun yesterday. And also our word clouds, which I think they're whimsical and they're fun and they're maybe not very serious, but they have a very serious point to them. I think it's a great way for us to just see all the different voices and opinions and thoughts and places that we all come from, and to actually bring all those points of view together into a single screen. And so I think it's a very important exercise for us. Okay, so we're going to have today a different lineup from yesterday, obviously. We're going to have presentations and virtual tours one after the other. Quick Q&A between each session, and then a coffee break. Second session of presentations, then another coffee break, which obviously you don't have to drink coffee, you can do other things. And then we will end the day with a fantastic interactive game prepared for us by last year's intern, Giusy, and this year's intern, Flora. So that'll be worth staying around for. I'm going to hand, and the other thing is the times here are what we would like to keep to. Obviously, if things run over a little bit, that's okay, but it does mean we will have to shorten the breaks between sessions. So keep that in mind. And now I'm going to hand over to Cecilia, to our secretary, to moderate the first session.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for being here with us, sharing this experience. And to be very fast and to give the time to those who are the protagonists here, I want to present and to introduce Angelica Policeno Fabbri and Matjaž Maia from Casa di Portinari Museum in Brazil, with their presentation, Heritage Education Project of the Casa de Portinari Museum in Brodowski, Brazil, Schools, Strengthening Narratives for Cultural Identity Formation. Thank you very much.
Hi, dear colleagues. I hope everyone is okay. I'm Angelica Fabbri, museologist and director of Portinari House Museum. And in me, I have Matjaž Maia, manager of the museum. We are very happy to talk about our work here, sharing a little of our projects, in special our heritage education projects. Let's go. Our museum is managed by Acampo Portinari, a social organization of culture founded on November 27, 1996. In partnership with the Secretariat of Culture, Creative Economy and Industries, we manage 4 museums belonging to the Government of the State of São Paulo: Casa de Portinari Museum in Brodowski, Índia Vanuir Historical and Pedagogical Museum in Tupã, Felícia Lerner Museum and Cláudio Santoro Auditorium, Campos do Jordão, and Indigenous Cultures Museums in São Paulo. About our museum. The Casa de Portinari Museum is housed in the building where the painter Cândido Portinari, one of the most important painters in Brazil, lived during his childhood and part of his, and to which he always returned to spend time until his death, which represents the tangible symbol of the artist's connection to his hometown, a bond celebrated and perpetuated throughout his visual and poetic works. Inaugurated on March 14, 1997, in Brodowski by the Secretariat of Culture, Creative Economy and Industry of the State of São Paulo. Brodowski, a town in countryside of São Paulo. The city was named Brodowski in honor of the chief inspector of the Mogiana Railway Company, Engineer Brodowski, later shortened to just Brodowski. Here we have some pics of the museum. The interior of museum and the front of museum. Now, some projects we are developing with our community. Social projects, education projects, artistic projects, and others. One of the most important projects is a Portinari Pathways project. These are spaces for articulating the city's memory and culture, aiming to create, preserve, and disseminate different narratives that shape cultural landscapes and strengthen dialogue with the community. The museum transcends its walls and reaches the community through actions that connect memory, art, and territory, like the bandstand, a little church, Sant Antonio Church, railway station, and museum Casa de Portinari, and animal fund.
And this project that Angelica talked about is really connected to Portinari Goes to School, our heritage education project, which we are going to present to you today. The initiative aims to raise awareness among children in the local public school system about the significance of preserving local cultural heritage. By engaging these students, the project extends its impact to the wider school, community, and families, strengthening the museum's connection to the local population. We do not organize lessons, we have thematic sessions, and through these thematic sessions, interactive activities, and visits to historical sites, the project not only recovers but also redefines the community's cultural identity. Here we have one of the encounter samples. The theme is exactly historical narrative, and the content we work with children is Portinari's memories. He says, our toys varied depending on the month, and there were also different ones for daytime and nighttime. For daytime, we had marbles, spinning tops, hoops, toy, airplanes, kites, diabolo, bilboquet, yo-yo, button soccer, balloons, ring toss, and soccer. For nighttime, tag, butter bar, which is a chasing game, and leapfrog. And maybe in your own country, these games have a different name. Interdisciplinary concepts we work with then, understanding the relationships between people and place, living conditions, histories, and emotional and identity connections with the place where they live. Like Angelica showed you, we have some photos of the students visiting these places and connecting, straightening, and bringing new narratives connected to all of them.
Then, Portinari Goes to School project, preserving people's memories and narratives. The initiative connects the residents with Portinari's life and work, highlighting the artist's deep roots in the city, making this connection even more meaningful for students in their context. By deepening these narratives, the Casa de Portinari Museum promotes reflection on how individuals relate to their surrounding, encouraging the recognition and the appreciation of local cultural heritage. The project fosters learning and respect for Portinari's artistic legacy, strengthening bonds between the museum, the community, and the preservation of their shared history, ultimately reinforcing collective identity and memory.
Just some information about the working hours of the museum and our website and social media. Feel free to follow us. We'll be glad if you follow us.
Thank you so much. We're very happy. We are very happy for these opportunities, for this important opportunity to show our work and sharing with colleagues a little of our work here in Brodowski. Thank you.
Well, bravo, obrigada. Very nice, Angelica and Matjaž. Thank you. And please, Jennifer, close your camera. And we will discuss the probably many questions that attendees will do to you, Matjaž and Angelica. Okay. And now I would like to present my friends Iñaki and Silvia, Iñaki Urricelqui and Silvia Lizarraga from the Gobierno de Navarra, Spain. They are going to participate with a very interesting presentation about the Carlism Museum, New Stories in a History Museum. So we can we run their presentation, please?
Muchas gracias a la organización y particularmente a Cecilia Casas por invitarnos a Silvia y a mí a participar en este encuentro sobre Casas Museo con esta presentación, el Museo del Carlismo, nuevos relatos en un museo de historia. La historia es un relato de historias, y más aún empleando el término unamuniano de intrahistorias, elaborado desde las ideologías y por tanto sometido a estas. La historia del carlismo no deja de ser en consecuencia un relato más que historiográficamente oscila entre el tono apologético y justificativo de sus defensores y el discurso crítico y peyorativo de sus detractores, aportándose también una visión académica centrada en el relato como objeto histórico y tendente a la veracidad de los hechos. Ante esto, el museo actúa como punto en el que convergen relatos diversos y que debe ofrecer narrativas consecuentes con la historia y particularmente con las historias tejidas por los bienes culturales y documentos que custodian la memoria de los hechos. En este sentido, el Museo del Carlismo complementa el relato de la historia contemporánea de España, al tiempo que ofrece narrativas paralelas gracias al componente material e inmaterial de los bienes culturales que atesora. El Museo del Carlismo, equipamiento cultural del Gobierno de Navarra, ubicado en la localidad de Estella e inaugurado en 2010, tiene como misión el estudio del carlismo desde su origen en el siglo XIX y su participación en los conflictos bélicos, su evolución social y política en el periodo de entresiglos, su implicación en la guerra civil y su posterior desarrollo durante la dictadura franquista. Por tanto, el Museo del Carlismo es un museo de historia y no una casa museo. Sin embargo, conceptos como el hogar y lo doméstico tienen mucho que ver con esta institución. En primer lugar, su sede, en plena ruta jacobea, es un edificio histórico, el llamado Palacio del Gobernador, construido a comienzos del siglo XVII por iniciativa de Juan de Chávarri y Larraín, barón de Purroy, y que, según se cree, sirvió de residencia al gobernador de Estella durante la última guerra carlista. Si bien no quedó nada de esta relación, más allá del nombre, la condición del palacio como hogar carlista y su ubicación específica en Estella, arca santa del carlismo en palabras de Valle Inclán, fue determinante para su elección como sede del museo y juega un papel en las narrativas de la institución. El museo atesora bienes culturales del carlismo, muchos de ellos procedentes de espacios domésticos de los pretendientes carlistas y de los hogares relacionados con la causa, y que revelan las diferentes capas que coexisten en la historia del movimiento, en la que intervienen diversos protagonistas y agentes. El Museo del Carlismo atiende los bienes culturales de su colección desde su materialidad, pero también recoge su relato y el uso y función de los mismos en el entorno doméstico, partiendo de la propia corte carlista en el exilio, donde cobra un especial protagonismo el Salón de las Banderas del Palacio de Loredán, residencia en Venecia de Carlos de Borbón y Austria Este tras la Segunda Guerra Carlista. En el citado salón, el pretendiente al trono de España dispuso su colección a modo de Gabinete de las Maravillas, un espacio al que concedió la categoría de museo de sus gestas testimoniadas en las banderas y convirtió su visita en parada obligatoria para invitados ilustres y todos los españoles que viajaban a Venecia. Consideradas individualmente, las banderas de los batallones carlistas del siglo XIX tienen un indudable valor material e histórico, pero puestas en relación con este emblemático espacio doméstico, adquieren un enorme valor simbólico como testimonios del pasado y transmisoras del ideal. Banderas concretas, como el estandarte de la Generalísima, adquieren más valor si se tiene en cuenta el relato de su elaboración en el ámbito doméstico de la familia real carlista, siendo sus autoras las hermanas María Francisca y María Teresa de Braganza, primera y segunda esposa respectivamente del infante Carlos María Isidro de Borbón. Custodiada tras la primera contienda por María Teresa de Braganza, princesa de Beira, sería entregada por esta a su sobrino nieto, Carlos de Borbón y Austria Este, en un gesto cargado de intencionalidad que confiere a la prenda la categoría de objeto transmisor de la legitimidad dinástica como emblema del carlismo, volviendo a ser ondeada durante la Segunda Guerra Carlista. Tras la batalla, ocuparía un lugar central en el mencionado Salón de las Banderas de Loredán, contribuyendo al simbolismo de este entorno doméstico. Considerar el objeto material y el relato en torno al mismo resultan fundamentales, tanto en el proceso de documentación del bien cultural como en su exposición. Como tal, una bandera representa un hecho, un colectivo, una ideología, pero con la narrativa de la domesticidad se convierte en un objeto vinculado al hogar, a la tradición, a la transmisión generacional del ideal y permite desarrollar relatos como el referido a su manufactura, por qué, para qué, cómo y para quién se creó, o el destacado papel de la mujer en el carlismo como productora, custodia y transmisora del ideal y de bienes culturales, en lo que ahonda el museo a través del itinerario Mujeres y Carlismo y la guía Reveladas, nueva perspectiva para visitar la exposición del Museo del Carlismo. Precisamente este proyecto propone una nueva narrativa al guión histórico de la exposición permanente con la que se visibiliza el determinante papel desempeñado por la mujer en el carlismo como ideadora, creadora, custodia y transmisora de los bienes culturales y del ideal, cuestión apuntada ya con relación a la Generalísima y las hermanas Braganza, pero que se aprecia en otros nombres propios y también en figuras anónimas. Objetos como la espada de honor que los carlistas regalaron a Jaime de Borbón y Borbón Parma en Frosdorf en 1911 han llegado a nosotros a través del ámbito doméstico y de la custodia femenina. Su valor no solo está en su materialidad, como joya del modernismo catalán, sino en su sentido simbólico y en su relación con la corte carlista en el exilio, en este caso en Austria, como sucede con la Generalísima y parte del patrimonio cultural del carlismo custodiado por el Museo de Recuerdos Históricos, que permaneció activo en Pamplona entre las décadas de 1940 y 1960 y que actuó como segundo hogar de la memoria carlista. Exposiciones temporales como Comprometidos con la Historia, Las Voces de la Causa, El Legado de la Familia Uranga, han puesto en valor en su museografía y relato la importancia de la familia y los hogares, en la transmisión de bienes culturales al museo y el propio papel del hogar como espacio de expresión y custodia de la identidad carlista. La documentación de los bienes culturales recoge la materialidad e inmaterialidad de los mismos, actuando así el museo como centro documental y museológico que guarda esta memoria. En ello juega un papel destacado el centro de documentación del museo, muchos de cuyos materiales proceden de ámbitos domésticos y ofrecen una narrativa íntima y complementaria que a su vez se expresa en proyectos expositivos y en la programación cultural del museo. Una prueba de ello son los programas Reflexiones desde el arte contemporáneo e Instantáneas, en los que el museo invita a creadores contemporáneos a elaborar una obra de arte actual partiendo de la temática del museo, siendo por lo general clave para la inspiración de estas obras la consulta del centro de documentación, pues las diferentes creaciones desde diferentes disciplinas han encontrado su fuente de inspiración en la estrecha relación del objeto con lo doméstico, ahondando en la narrativa de la intrahistoria y poniendo el valor en pequeños relatos personales que inciden en la tragedia y miseria de la guerra más que en su exaltación, aspecto este sobre el que el museo trabaja didácticamente en su oferta a centros educativos. Por su parte, el programa Instantáneas nace de las donaciones de fotografías realizadas por particulares y en las que se plasman historias personales y familiares, buscándose asimismo la participación y colaboración ciudadana con el apoyo de la Asociación Fotográfica de Tierra Estella, como proyecto que posiciona al museo en el entramado cultural y social de la localidad. El concepto de domesticidad como cualidad de lo doméstico impregna de significado los bienes culturales atesorados en el museo y que determina las narrativas del mismo. Un objeto tan sencillo como es una boina, prenda de naturaleza etnográfica, no solo adquiere sentido para el carlismo a través de su color y elementos complementarios como la chapa o la borla, sino también por el relato que conserva la memoria familiar y que forma parte de la documentación que acompaña al objeto. De manera que la boina carlista adquiere mayor valor por su pertenencia a una persona concreta que hace del objeto material un símbolo personal y colectivo. Asimismo, hay objetos en los que el valor cultural diferencial es aportado por detalles que encarnan la domesticidad. Así, por ejemplo, la conocida cromolitografía de Carlos VII diseñada por Carlos Vázquez tiene valor como expresión de la imagen regia del pretendiente, pero también como objeto de devoción familiar, cuando presenta en su superficie la intervención de sus propietarios que han añadido una mención a la muerte del pretendiente, haciendo de este objeto un testimonio vivo del sentimiento en el seno de una familia carlista. En resumen, sin ser una casa museo, el Museo del Carlismo encuentra en el ámbito doméstico un valor material esencial al objeto y un espacio de ideación y producción de bienes culturales y con ellos de custodia y transmisión del ideal. El hogar constituye un espacio clave en el carlismo para la transmisión generacional del ideal y del patrimonio, y de este espacio doméstico proceden muchos de los bienes culturales, incluidos sus relatos que constituyen la colección del museo. Conservar el objeto material junto con su relato y su vinculación doméstica son primordiales para esta institución como centro documental y museológico que conserva, documenta y difunde la historia y la memoria del carlismo a través de narrativas oficiales, pero también alternativas. Podría concluirse que el museo es un hogar y solo en la intimidad de su hogar puede conocerse verdaderamente a las personas. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much, Iñaki and Silvia. This has been very interesting. I hope you could practice your Spanish, some of you. We will manage with the questions at the end of this session of speakers. And now I would like to present our colleague from Mexico, Elena Sánchez Cortina, from Colegio de San Ignacio de Loyola Vizcaínas, with her presentation, The House of Chaplains in the School of St. Ignatius Loyola Vizcaínas, an 18th century building in Mexico City. Querida Elena, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Elena Sánchez Cortina. I want to thank you very much the invitation to Open Talks. Today I will speak about the House of Chaplains in the School of St. Ignatius of Loyola Vizcaínas in Mexico City. I had the privilege to be the director of the museum for 3 years, and now I am also in charge of the historic archives. So I have been studying these subjects for many years. A group of Basques gathered in a chapel dedicated to the Virgin of Aránzazu. This is a devotion of the north of Spain. So when they traveled to New Spain, they brought this Virgin with them. And they had a chapel where they gathered, and they decided to found a school for orphan girls and widows. And they found a place in downtown Mexico. So I'm showing the place where the school was found. The school is built on a place that measures 17,000 square meters. It has 9 courts, it has a chapel, and today a museum and the historic archives. So the School of St. Ignatius of Loyola was founded in 1732, and it opened its doors in 1767. All these years were due to the construction, but also because the bishop at the moment wanted a religious order to take care of the school. And the Basques were very jealous of their work, and they decided to be independent from the church, and they would take care of the school. So that's the reason why the school is still running today. There are 650 students, today boys and girls, that come every day to this school. Here I am showing the map of the school, and in red, the House of Chaplains. So the House of Chaplains is in the building, but they had an independent door. The chaplains are Catholic priests, and they took care of the sacraments for the girls. Every morning, the girls attended Mass at 6 in the morning, and the chaplains also administered other sacraments. Here we can see a photo of the entrance, their door, and also the chapel. This chapel is dedicated to St. Ignatius of Loyola. He was from the Basque country. And the main altarpiece was finished in the mid-18th century. It's carved in wood and then with gold leaf. At the center, we see sculpture of St. Ignatius of Loyola, and we have also sculpture of St. Francis of Assisi, St. Dominic, St. Anne, and St. Joachim. On the left, we have 2 altarpieces, one dedicated to the Virgin of Aránzazu and also the Virgin of Guadalupe. And on the right-hand side, the Virgin of Sorrows and the Virgin of Loreto. So it's in this chapel where the chaplains took care of Mass and the sacraments, as I just mentioned. It is this place, the House of Chaplains. They lived here, and today is a museum. So these galleries were adapted to host all the artwork. The artwork is mostly paintings, sculpture, ivory, furniture, also a collection of silver and textiles. We have 1,649 pieces of textile, silk, linen, cotton, and mostly it was done by the girls. We only have 2 photographs in black and white of the first museum that was installed. And when it closed, all the artwork was delivered in different places of the school until the 1990s. So the School of Chaplains was abandoned in 1926 because the president of Mexico at the time, whose name was Plutarco Elias Calles, closed the churches and the Catholic schools. So this place was abandoned. It was later rented to a public school, for 40 years. They paid rent to Vizcaínas, but it was a very low rent. So the School of Vizcaínas did not invest in this building. So in the 1980s, they left, and a member of the board was very generous and restored the house in the 1990s. At this time, the decision was taken to install the museum in this place. So we see how they were working for restoration. So the museum opened in 1996. It has 17 galleries. We have here in the first gallery with blue walls, the founders, portraits of the founders, a painting of the Virgin of Aránzazu, and as you can see, other religious subjects, some of them painted by important painters of the 18th and 19th century. We also have wooden sculptures, ivory, carpets, and visitors can come to the museum. It's in a private school, but by appointment, it's open to everyone. Everyone is welcome. In 2017, 4 new galleries opened, and this was to show everyday life. We see here a classroom and a portrait of the headmistress at the end of the 19th century. It's important to show the visitors what happened in the school. It's the history of education, history of girls' education. So all these objects have history, each of them. We also have music instruments. We see in this photograph a pianoforte, Clementi, and in the archives we have musical manuscripts. And this music was played in the chapel you just saw. We also have the infirmary. So when the girls got sick, they could come to the infirmary. And on the photograph, we see a doctor and one of the girls with a broken arm. Today, this place is also used for social activities, as we see in this photograph. It's a way of doing fundraising to get some restoration and other activities. So I hope some of you could visit one day. You are most welcome. And for me, it's a pleasure to be today with you and to participate. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Elena. Thank you very much. It was amazing, amazing. Okay, now we are going to have the debate about these 3 presentations. Can you, all the speakers of these 3 presentations, open your cameras and be ready for answer the questions? So Angelica, Matjaž, Elena, and Silvia, if you feel you are comfortable. And okay, we have several questions in the chat. And remember, if somebody wants to make a question speaking, just raise your hand. You have a small icon of hand, and the moderators of the session will see your raised hand, and you will be able to ask your question directly to the speakers, okay? So we were having several interesting questions for Angelica and Matjaž. For instance, our chair, Timna, asked, what stories from the house do the children relate to? Interesting.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Timna, for the question. Angelica is struggling a little bit with her connection, So we talked here, and she asked me to answer to the questions. Yeah, the children connect very easily to the stories told at the museum, because Portinari, our artist, his childhood was an inspiration all the time for his work, for his artistic and poetic work. So everything he relates to, everything he mentions, such as his life in a small city in Brodowski, our hometown, is still a small city. The places he visited, the things he did as a child here, the freedom children still can experience. They still can connect and visit these places. So they kind of feel small opportunities. They feel like they are the painter as well. They identify themselves. They study in the same place he studied. And the artist's story was itself very inspirational. So all these stories connecting the artist to the city and the things he did here as a child is very easily worked at the museum, and we explore it a lot. The project we presented is just a summary of everything the museum does with the public itself. So we exactly work these narratives from Portinari, starting with Portinari, but widening to all people that live here. So that's why I need to show you. This is one of the books we have here that Angelica wrote. So this is available on our website. And we use this material to summarize the connection between Portinari and his hometown. And by doing this, we connect these narratives, of course, the narratives that nowadays are new, the children narratives, to the stories we tell here at the museum, and the same stories we work through this project, educational project.
Thank you, Matthews. I have more questions for you, many questions. For instance, Fernanda Paiva Guimaraes was pointing out it's true that yesterday children were one of the missing people in the museum's, speeches. And Ximena, our board member, was asking why different toys for day and night.
Yeah, Fernanda, for your comment. This is something that Angelica and I were talking during the presentations. The museum connects naturally to children, so we were somehow surprised yesterday as well. Surprised, but yeah, we see the differences, because every museum has their own collections, so it's totally okay. But for us, it's the opposite. We connect to children easily, and we try to find other types of public more than children, because children naturally are part of the museum and they connect to the proposal here. So yeah, this is very common for us. And thank you, Ximena, for the question as well. This was we got this information through Portinari's diary, and this is an expression to show how things were different those days. No energy, no electrical energy during his childhood, but children were free to play. Nowadays, children, they have to get inside the homes. They don't have the right to play. They are too connected to their devices using the internet. So those times were different. The connection was in the interaction, and the toys were used to strengthen those connections. So children wanted to play, of course, and they wanted to play day and night. So they had different games that were, of course, they depended on the sunlight. They depended on the parents' allowance as well. So they played during day and during night. Of course, different games, different toys. This is the spirit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matthews. I'm going to ask some question to Elena, because I don't know if Silvia is having mic or we have issues with the audio. So, Elena, we have several questions for you. For instance, Roberto asked, do the school continues working? And also, do we have testimonies from girls who were at the school? This is a question from Gabriela Steinitz. And Timna, where the objects of Vizcaínas come from? These are some of the questions.
Okay, well, the school was founded in 1767, and at that moment, 70 girls started the school. But in the 19th century, the Catholic schools closed, and there were two convents, school convents nearby. So the girls arrived, but also the objects. So that means paintings, sculpture, furniture, also textiles. So what we show today in the museum is a very big percentage of the other schools. I have been doing research about this, and there is no list because they took with the hands the things. They were like 5 blocks away, so they didn't do any list. So we more or less know by the epoch that was from one school, because one was from the 16th century and the other from the 17th century. So if it's an old object, maybe from this school or the other. And in the archive, we have some notes. For example, there's a painting of San Francis Xavier, and it's an oil painting. We have it in the museum. And in the archive, we have a paper, and it's dated 1768, and it says who was the painter and the cost. So we know it cost 14 pesos at the time, and the painter was Juan Patricio Morlete Ruiz, who was a very, very important painter. So we try to connect the documents and the objects of the museum. So we do many activities for the school children today. The school children go from 18 months, they are really kindergarten, almost babies, until 18 years old. So we have different activities. Just one example. This Monday was June 9th, the International Day of the Archives. So we invited primary students from 9, 10 years old to 12, and we showed original documents, and then they had an activity. So on one day we received 150 students, and so we tried to do this during the whole year, different activities for different ages. And we know that it's a school with a lot of history, and it's for them, but also for their families. So every time a new student will go to the school, the family has to do a tour of the school, of the museum. We have publications, so we give publication. But we also do effort with institutions. We have very good relations with different universities in Mexico, so students can do their social work with us. And international also institutions. Just another example, I mentioned music. We had 575 musical manuscripts from the 17th century, 18th and 19th century. Authors from Europe, New Spain, and 19th century. So it's an enormous really enormous place to do research. And there's one scholar in California, and she did her PhD thesis on this manuscript, music manuscripts. So we invite her to do a lecture, and we try to have contact with them. Also recently with the Metropolitan Museum in New York, they did a research about an oil that was used in the early 18th century. So we try to work with them. So we are only 4 people who work in the cultural area. The school is much bigger, but we try to invite different activities and the people there to come as often as possible. As I said, it's a private museum, so it's not open completely to the public. You have to make an appointment. But with an appointment, of course, we welcome everyone. I don't know if...
Thank you, Elena. I have more questions for you and for Angelica and Matjaž, but I'm going to pick some questions that were made for Iñaki and Silvia that finally she reconnected, and now she has a nice audio, but she's going to answer in Spanish, okay? And I will translate it in the chat for those who don't understand. I will write it in English in the public chat. And there was a question for Silvia and Iñaki about the objects in their permanent exhibition, if they've changed or not. And also, I would like to ask them, how do they connect with such a ancient subject for the museum, the Carlism? How do they connect with the contemporary audiences? Now in Spanish. Ok, Silvia, nos gustaría saber si vuestra exposición permanente cambia o es siempre con los mismos objetos y cómo conectáis con las audiencias contemporáneas, con la sociedad actual, con una temática como la vuestra. ¿Puedes abrir tu micro? No. She's off the audio. Sorry.
Yes, she's not there anymore. She might try to reconnect. She's writing something.
Okay. And Caroline, in the meantime, Caroline, you tell me if we are going to have some time to extra questions for Elena and Matjaž.
We have 5 minutes more.
Okay, Silvia, don't worry, because Silvia just arrived from Roma in a plane, and now she is in a very small village and their connection is very low. But please, Silvia, don't worry. And we are having, if you have the time, you can answer in the chat, okay? Take your time. And we have a bit of a time extra. For instance, a question from Gianluca Cans. For Elena, very interesting and wonderful. I'm a little puzzled from the color of the plaster in the rooms. They seem to be very modern. Is this intended?
Yes, okay. Well, the school opened in 1996 and all the walls were white. And all the museography was done, as I always say, with very good intention, but not very, very clear. So I arrived as director of the museum in 2014, and I tried to change, for example, the first gallery has to be the founders, then another subject, then St. Ignatius of Loyola. We have many sculptures and paintings, so there has to be one gallery just for him, saints, and then virgins, and then so on, so by subjects. And since everything was in white, we started to paint the walls with colors. So yes, this blue is modern and it's intended, and everyone likes it. Maybe I can, if you write me, I can send you a video or more photographs. I would love that. but people like different colors, and I have seen in museums that it goes well with the artwork.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you. Do we have Silvia?
She's trying to reconnect.
No worries, Silvia. So we are not delayed. You can answer in the chat writing, okay? So all the people will read your answer. And maybe do we have a few more minutes, Caroline? Or we need to switch off?
We have two more minutes, so time for one extra question. One question.
Well, other questions are already answered, like the pre-booked groups for Elena, and the maybe the question from Maria Teresa Josefina Pérez is a bit big. Could you comment on the daily challenge? I think this is this is for another presentation, maybe not a 1-minute answer. I just want to thank you, wonderful speakers, wonderful colleagues, for all your work, all your research, wonderful professionals from Brazil, Mexico, and Spain. Thank you very much for your collaboration in these open talks. And I will give the micro back to Caroline, and we are going to switch to the next session. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. And we are now moving to our virtual tour session, which will be moderated by Dr. Alexander Belousov. Alexander, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello for everyone. Buenos dias para los hispanohablantes. Bonjour pour the francophones. For general understanding, I will speak in English. And firstly, I want to say thank you for organizers of Open Talks. It's a great honor to me to moderate these video tours. And we are starting our video tour section. Thanks to it, we will be able to immerse ourselves in the context and history of different house museums from different countries, from different places of the world. It's a great experience for us, and these open talks can give us a new professional levels for everyone. And the first video tour is from Norway. The largest cities in Norway, Stavanger, is located near the Northern Sea. This is a city with a rich history and a wonderful museum, great museum, which personally immersed me with the synthetics of historical and tourism architecture. Today, colleagues from this museum, Belén Navazo Hourcade and Ingrid Sandell Bull-Njaa, will tell us about the new narratives of historical museum house museums. I ask to turn on the first video, please.
Stavanger, Norway's oil capital, is known for its stunning coastline and old town, drawing hundreds of thousands of tourists annually. Just beyond the city centre in the serene Eiganes district lie 3 unique house museums, Ledål, Breidablikk and Holme Eiganes, offering a unique window into Stavanger's transformation from 1750 to 1950. Until now, the stories we've told about the houses have been centered around the individual families that used to inhabit them. But these museums tell a much more comprehensive story about the development of the city. Holme Eiganes is a rare Norwegian property, combining a grand residence with an agricultural structure. Though parts date back to the late 1700s, the current farm was established in 1864. Once a country estate of the Kielland family, it became a thriving market garden from the 1890s to the early 1990s. Ledål, completed in 1803 by Gabriel Skanke-Kielland, began as a country estate and was acquired by Stavanger Museum in 1949. It is now a museum, municipal venue and royal residence. Across from Ledål is Breidablikk, a Swiss-style villa built in 1882 for merchant and politician Lars Berntsen. Retained by the family for nearly a century, it became a museum in 1975. The museums are open to the public in summer. Holme Egenes has an audio guide, while Ledål and Breidablikk lack audio guides and updated visitor information, despite their rich ties to Stavanger's development. A new interpretive framework is proposed, one that places these homes within broader narratives of urban growth, social change, and international connections. Egenes remained uncultivated until 1771, when it was divided and leased to citizens to increase municipal revenue. As tenants built homes, they were eventually allowed to buy their plots. Like many European elites at the time, Stavanger's upper class began seeking space outside crowded, smelly city centers. Egenes became a desirable retreat. Among the first to build here were the brothers Jakob and Gabriel Kirsebom-Kielland. Jakob built in 1771. Gabriel's widow later built the house that still stands today and is still privately owned. Thus began Egenes' transformation into an upscale residential district. Land ownership in Egenes became a symbol of wealth and status. Gabriel Skanke-Kielland's construction of Ledål from 1799 to 1803 during the Napoleonic Wars reflected both the family's rising influence and the city's economic boom. Inspired by European aristocracy and modelled after Copenhagen's Royal Shooting Range, Ledål became Stavanger's first neoclassical brick building, with imported materials and glazed roof tiles. For about 60 years after its completion, Ledål was the vibrant hub of Stavanger's upper-class social life. The influential Kielland family hosted lavish events and important meetings here, shaping the city's future. Ledål's furnishings are likely the city's oldest and best preserved, offering rare insight into the era's style and the Kielland way of life. Ledål was owned by the family until 1936 and remains a powerful symbol of Stavanger's architectural ambition and the legacy of one of its most influential families. The Kielland family story reflects a wider European trend: the rise of the bourgeoisie, who built wealth and influence through trade, banking, and land ownership. By the 1860s, Gabriel's grandson, Axel Christian Kielland, inherited the family's legacy and built Holme Egenes, a combined residence and farm, in 1864. Its distinct Danish and North German style symbolized ambition and prosperity. But by the 1880s, Stavanger faced economic collapse. Once fueled by herring and shipping, the city's economy crumbled, leading to mass unemployment and emigration of over 10,000 residents to North America. Though devastating, the crisis spurred economic diversification and gave rise to the canning industry, which reshaped Stavanger's economy. As the industry rose, Egenes changed. Holme Egenes was sold to gardener Bernt Pedersen, who ran a market garden here until 1951. During this time, Lars Berntsen emerged as a canning industry visionary. His success was embodied in Breidablikk, a villa that signaled modernity in a city of modest homes. The house became a symbol of upward mobility for both the industrial elite and working class, reflecting broader changes in Stavanger as new districts like Storhaug and Våland emerged. Though Lars Berntsen's influence declined with time, his contributions endured. He served as mayor, co-founded institutions like Stavanger Privatbank and the Tourist Association, and was a key figure in developing the canning industry. His children continued this legacy. Erik contributed to Stavanger Museum and helped establish Stavanger Maritime Museum, while Caroline and Olga supported cultural life. Olga's donation of Breidablikk to Stavanger ensured its preservation for public benefit. Ledål, Holme Egenes, and Breidablikk are more than just historic homes. As Stavanger marks its 900th anniversary, we invite you to explore how these buildings illuminate the city's urban, social, and economic journey. See beyond the interiors and discover the stories that shaped Stavanger.
Thank you very much. It was great. It's very interesting video. If you have some questions, we will discuss after the second video. And okay, you can always write your question in our chat. It's very important to us. Please write in have some questions, please. Okay, we next when we have the next video too. This time from Slovenia, and it will tell us about the house where at the beginning of 19th century was born the famous Slovenian poet Franz Prešeren. I'm sorry, I can some mistakes. He's a classic of Slovenian literature, and his poems have become the modern anthem of Slovenia. It's great. It's very interesting. I think it will be a very interesting video for everyone. So let's watch the video from our colleague from Slovenia, Matjaž Koman from Institute for Tourism and Culture Žirovnica. I ask to turn on the second video, please.
Welcome to Vrba, a quiet village where one house holds the legacy of not just one, but two remarkable Slovenians. This is the birdhouse of France Prešeren, Slovenia's greatest poet. And today, we're exploring how multiple layers of memory and identity coexists within this single space. So today we are asking, can a house museum hold more than one story?
France Prešeren was born here on December 3rd, 1800.
At the time, the house was partially wooden, with thatched roof and likely decorated with painted brick coins.
In 1872, a commemorative plaque dedicated to France Prešeren was added to the house facade, marking it a place of national memory long before it became a museum.
It wasn't until 1939 that the house officially became the first house museum in Slovenia. The purchase was made thanks to initiative of the writer Franz Saleški Finžgar and donation from Slovenian school children. Finžgar's vision was clear: to not only present the house as the birthplace of the poet, but also as a symbol of Slovenia's rural identity. He called it the mother of all Slovenian houses. This house, however, has another story to tell.
In 1900, exactly a century after Prešeren, another boy was born here, Anton Vovk, Prešeren's great-nephew.
While Prešeren famously rejected the priestly path, choosing law and poetry, Vovk fully embraced it. He became the Archbishop of Ljubljana and a figure of quiet resistance during Yugoslavia's turbulent post-war years.
In 2000, a second commemorative plaque was placed on the facade of the house, dedicated to Anton Vovk, a religious figure memorized on the same building as Slovenia's greatest poet. So, can these two narratives share the same walls? Here's the irony. The current appearance of the house aligns more closely with Vovk's time than Prešeren's. Following a fire in the village in 1856, the house was rebuilt, Later renovations resulted in the addition of new materials and proportions. The red tile roof and loss of the decorative elements reflects a shift away from the original 18th century aesthetic. When we talk about narratives in museums, we often think of texts and tours. But here, the building itself tells a story through mortar, wood, and roof tiles. And today, it tells Volk's story as much as Prešeren's. So we must ask, whose house is this now? At least in terms of appearance. When the museum opened in 1939, Anton Volk was only mentioned briefly on marble plate. In 2000, during an exhibition update, a few sentences were dedicated to him on a single panel. And in 2018, when we renovated the exhibit, we decided to dedicate an entire panel to Volk. It felt right. After all, his plaque was now part of the building's facade. And now, the house is undergoing a full renovation and will feature a new exhibition. What stories will be told here? We'll see. Maybe it depends on which way the wind blows, left or right. It can sometimes feel as if this house breathes, not because of the century layered in its beams and walls, but because it continues to ask questions about who we are. Prešeren and Volk, poetry and faith, rebellion and devotion, two lives, one house. Maybe a house museum isn't where history sleeps. Maybe it's where we negotiate it. Prešeren's birdhouse will always be his. But maybe, just maybe that's exactly why it can also belong to others. Because if this house teaches us anything, is that there is strength in shared stories, even when they don't rhyme.
Okay, thank you very much for this video. It's great. Now we are starting the debate. We have 15 minutes, as far as I understand. I ask the speakers to turn on their cameras and microphones, please. Matjaž, hello. Belén, Ingrid, hello. Yes, it's great. We have some questions from our chat, some comments also. It's great. And I think we will start from the first questions for Hillary. Thank you, President. Belén, you mentioned reinterpretation for Lidl. Has that happened already? If so, what resources did you look at?
Actually, we not only reinterpreted Lidl, is also the other two, because at the beginning or until now, the history was focused only in the families. But right now, we try to change the narrative and try to get another narrative more connected to the city history, because for the tourist, for the visitor, was not easy to understand the history, because those families are very, very new here in Stavanger, but just here. not the new generation, for example, know nothing at all about them. So we try to evaluate the visitor opinion, try to get more information about what the visitors are waiting for this kind of houses and the offer from the museum, and figure out them. So the first we have done are to not change the history, but tell the history but another way, and also put the three histories together in this narrative, not one, but three together, because this neighborhood, the houses are very, very close, but until now the histories have been told by another way, very, very individual. So yeah, and we started just with that. The first of all are guiding much more, because until now just the whole Mykonos had a guide. The other two has just this kind of guides. It's not very, and also the text is from 1990. Yeah, 1990.
Or
so
maybe.
Yeah. So we were in the school so a long time ago. So we tried to get more information, and as mentioned, put together, and also in some parallel histories, not only from Stavanger, also for the rest of Norway and Europe, of course. So this is our plan, but step by step.
Okay, it's great. Thank you very much. And I want to the next question I think it's great to Matjaž. It's one question from Timna. How do you see the competing and perhaps conflicting narratives sharing the house and rooms?
Thank you for the question. I don't know. I don't think they erased each other. They rather coexist in their tension, maybe. So the house becomes a space of negotiation where layered histories invite reflections rather than resolutions. I think that the complex of the situation is precisely what it gives it depth and meaning.
Okay, thank you very much. And the new question for Belén, Ingrid. Do they have articulated programming? From Maria Cristina Gonzalez. This question.
I'm not sure I understand what articulated programming means.
Do have articulated programming? Maybe Maria Cristina will switch on microphone, can ask her the question.
Can you clarify the question? Because as mentioned, we have plans that we're working on.
Oh, it's great. Thank you. And in question for Matjaž, do you have collection
Maria
objects?
Cristina, you don't have the microphone.
Oh. Oh yeah, switch on. Yes, Maria Cristina, you can.
Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
I am interested in how you annually or periodically you have some activities scheduled, and you have, for instance, a concert or a conference, and you have an articulation between the three houses.
So the museums are open for the public during the summer for 2 months, but the rest of the year, school classes and other groups can contact me, and I will open the museums, and and take them to see the museums. We also have, they're a bit different because Holmegenes has the old barn. Is now a public, an area for the public, so it's not a museum. So we have concerts, and people can rent the area to have weddings and other kinds of gatherings. While Ledol is used by the mayor for events for them. We have a few small concerts, and Breidablikk is never used for anything besides when it's open and when we bring classes to see them. So they're a bit different because Breidablikk is very little. It's not available if you're in a wheelchair, for instance, because there are stairs everywhere, and because of this historic house, we can't change it, so it's not accessible for everyone. Yeah, so they're a bit different, and I bring classes throughout the year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have a new question for Matjaž. Do you have collection objects to support both narratives, or will you use panels or guides? It's a question from Hilary Walker.
Hi, Hilary. No, we have quite big collection for Presheren's lifetime. Because in the 1939, when the museum first opened, the writer Pinchgar, he collected a lot of these like objects from Presheren's family. So we actually have a cradle where Prešeren, our poet, was born. There's, I don't know, the table that's authentic to their family, clock that used to be in the house, and a lot of other objects. But for Anton Vauc, we actually have a very small collection. I mean, we're gathering it. It's quite easier to get it because he lived from 1900. But of course, we have a room where we put panels, and we have guides.
Okay, thank you very much. And now to have some questions in our chat, and I will have some moderate questions. It's possible. My first question for Ingrid and Belén. How can this new approach enhance visitors' understanding of Stavanger's history?
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes, sorry, I have some problem with connection. How can this new approach enhance visitors' understanding of the history of the city?
Well, as Belén mentioned, up until now, it's been mostly focused around the history of the families and also art history and the different time periods. But the stories about the families, the names of the families are known to the grown-up population of Stavanger. The younger population might not know who they are. They haven't heard the names, and so telling the stories in the same ways as we have would not mean that much to them. So we'd like to lift the focus a bit and tell stories that doesn't focus as much on that. And we also in the Museum Stavanger that we work in, we have several other museums. So we have a canning museum and we have the Maritime Museum, and we want to connect these museums and their stories more to those the stories that they tell in those museums as well, because they're all connected. Yeah, so hopefully the visitors will be able to get a comprehensive kind of story about the development in Stavanger, which is it depends on who the visitors are, because if they're adults who are interested and knows some history already, they would be interested in another level of details than the younger students, for instance. And we need to make a story that's easier for them to understand, and also for especially international tourists who would not know the local story because we're not a very big and important city. So most people probably wouldn't know much about Stavanger before they arrive.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we might have some questions for both present speakers. Okay, I think I will give the first voice for Matjaž. And what question from Maria Cristina? Do the descendants of the families participate in the development of knowledge about the house museums and their experience and memories? Matjaž.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, actually, we do collaborate with some of the descendants of the family, particularly one, but he's also a professional in museums, so he likes to help. But what's interesting that we get a lot of visitors who research their family tree, and they're looking for connections to this family or to Prešeren or to Vauk. So that's quite interesting how people like to connect to their or to search for this connection. As I mentioned, this experience with these descendants who are working with us with the exhibitions, it's quite valuable to have the memories about the way of life, the way of, I don't know how maybe the house looked and everything. It's quite valuable.
Thank you very much. And it's questions for Belén and Ingrid, please.
Two of the museums, so Breidablikk and Holmegnes, were both the people who lived in the museums before they became museums. They didn't have any children and they never married, and so there are no family left. In Ledål, there are quite a lot of descendants, but we don't have any close contact with any of them. We have some with the last family that moved out. They stay in touch, and sometimes they visit, and they will bring back objects that belong to the family, and they say they intend to bring everything back, but it's up to them. It's their property, and they sometimes come and give us some of the items that used to be in the house, but they haven't actually participated in this in building the stories about the houses. No.
And also we have the archives, so we can get some information from the archives, and it's very, very useful because until now, not many people have written those papers, and now it's our challenge to understand everything from this documentation, because sometimes it's very some lost papers, but we work in them. Never give up to get something new there from.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I'm very sorry, but we should close our discussion because our time is over. And our section time has come to an end. And I'm sure that we will continue to discuss individually with each other and establish new professional connections. I think you can, if some people have some questions, you can ask this in the private chats. Please ask if you have some questions. And I want to thank very much for Belén, for Ingrid, for Matjaž. Thank you very much. It was great videos, great video tours, and very great answer for questions. And I should conclude our section, and now we have a short break, and if Caroline should speak something, we will speak, and if not, we will have coffee break at this time. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you
very much. Thank you very much, Alexander. And I launched the start of our 10-minute break, so everyone enjoy some coffee and all. If you missed the little video, the remembering yesterday's video, we're going to play it again during the break. Enjoy your break and see you in 10 minutes.
Good morning, America. Good morning. Good evening, Europe. Good something, Asia. Hello to all. All good things must come to an end, and we're heading to the finish line of this Open Talks 2025. But there are never true endings, are there? But the hope to meet again and continue our work with the parallel narratives shared through Open Talks. It is my privilege to present you the last two papers from English-speaking America. And the first one, a very personal friend of DEMHIST for many years, Hilary Walker from the Toronto History Museums, Canada, will present us a look at historic New England's evolving queer interpretation at Viewport, the Sleeper McCann House. Welcome, Hilary. The floor is yours.
Thank you to the organizing committee for hosting this event and for inviting me to speak. Today I'm going to talk about my doctoral research, which is separate from the work I'm currently doing with the Toronto History Museums. My research centered on Beauport, the Sleeper McCann House, which is now owned and operated by Historic New England. Part of my research looked at how changes in Historic New England enabled staff at Beauport to successfully integrate queer interpretation at the site. I did my fieldwork during the summer of 2018. In the talk, I will explore what it means to integrate queer heritage into house museum interpretation, and I will look at the implications of this work for museum professionals. Then I will trace how these changes played out at Beauport over a 10-year period. Beauport is perched on a rocky bluff on Gloucester Harbor, north of Boston, Massachusetts. The house has been operating as a house museum by Historic New England since 1942. The summer cottage was originally completed in 1907 through a close collaboration between owner and designer Henry Davis Sleeper and architect Hafton Hansen. The two continued building together for nearly 30 years to create evocative spaces for Sleeper to showcase his design aesthetic and express his identity. During my fieldwork, I shadowed guided tours of the house, visited Historic New England's library and archives, and interviewed staff. My research led me to consider how internal changes to the organization enabled Henry Davis Sleeper's queer sexuality to be acknowledged and how a more holistic interpretation of his life could be shared. Today, I'll be using both the terms LGBTQ+ and queer. In the 20th century, the term queer saw a shift from earlier derogatory meanings into a pansocial umbrella term meant to be inclusive of all the full spectrum of gender and sexuality. The term queer has specific connotations within museum discourse. Museum scholars and professionals often apply the queer as a verb. Queering a museum was first predominantly associated with interventions meant to disrupt normative practices that excluded queer communities. I argue that house museums with in situ collections require a different sort of queering. Interventions meant to disrupt the museum are not needed because the domestic space of the museum is already queered by its former occupant. The work of queering interpretation in house museums requires realignment with staff and the narratives that they engage with. As queering museums became more common, museum professionals made calls to shift the fundamental approach of interpreting sexuality. Paul Gabriel pointed to closeted and repressed sexuality he detected across the American museum profession in his 2010 article, "Why Grapple with Queer When You Can Fondle It?" Gabriel, an openly gay man, pointed out that queerness was being distilled and packaged into comfortably fit within the overall normative social patterns within museums. These neatly packaged one-dimensional queer narratives were easy to consume, but reinforced misconceptions held within the normative culture. Gabriel called for all museum professionals to sort through the junk of accumulated social constructs around sexuality. Quote, "To clean the junk out is to grapple with and ultimately embrace in ourselves what it means to be a queer self, which is to say a publicly sexualized self. And so, how comfortable we are with queer can act as a barometer for how relevant we perceive sexuality in general to be to our work," end quote. In asking for museum professionals to reassess their individual and collective relationships with sexuality, Gabriel sought to highlight the integral nature of sexuality to humanity by explaining, quote, "If we have to remember to include queer or feel compelled to do so by others, we are not accepting that human sexuality has taken a myriad of form and expression and profoundly informed who we are and what we do," end quote. Following Gabriel, Amy Levin called for the, quote, "critical interrogation of not only the museological practices that are the lifeblood of museums, but also our own professional identities and dispositions," end quote. As I mentioned before, queering house museums require special consideration. Sexuality in general needs to be acknowledged as a defining characteristic of human experience. By acknowledging sexuality, conversations about how sexuality is expressed and experienced at different points in history can be started. Opportunities to talk about systemic discrimination against queer communities also becomes available. For this work to succeed, the institution needs to be self-reflexive and dismantle normative biases. Returning to Beauport. In 2008, it was one of the first house museums in the United States to acknowledge the queer sexuality of a former inhabitant. In order for that to happen, Historic New England underwent an intentional change in the interpretation of their properties in 2004. The institution rebranded, changing their name from the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities to Historic New England. And they also shifted the focus away from architecture and towards social histories. This wide-ranging act signified an institutional willingness to create the internal structures to support the implementation of inclusive narratives. Discussion of sleeper sexuality was incorporated into tours gradually. Historic New England shifted towards social histories, enabling Beauport's site manager and the team leader of visitor experience to begin restructuring the interpretation. This initial change happened slowly because the institution did not want to alienate stakeholders, and staff sought historical evidence confirming sleeper sexual orientation before making changes to the interpretation. The first change to the tour was at the introduction. Guides noted that Sleeper was a gay man who never married and had no heirs at the entryway, which is shown here. Before any new material was added to the tour, staff took time to ensure that the guides were comfortable discussing sleeper sexuality. Historic New England staff referred to the initial training session about sleeper sexuality as therapy sessions for the guides. The guides were invited to express their concerns and ask questions in order to increase their comfort in addressing sexuality on tours. This work prompted self-reflection within the staff as they grappled, or perhaps fondled, with how they were going to share sleeper sexuality. Ultimately, the tour outline offered several options for how to include the information on tours, giving the guides the freedom to find their own modes of expression. The queer content expanded over 10 years that I studied. Tour guides became more used to the material and engaged with visitors about sleeper sexuality. Beauport sought relationships with queer communities, and the site became known as a site for queer heritage. Initially, Sleeper's connection to his neighbor, Abe Hyatt Andrew, pictured on the left here, was acknowledged. And then staff were also able to recontextualize this Chase and Sandberg coffee ad, which is in the middle here, that features Sleeper along with several other, quote, surprisingly domestic, well-known bachelors, end quote, which was basically code for same-sex attraction in the 1930s. Because Beauport staff were able to grapple with sexuality and present a holistic portrayal of Sleeper, the institution earned community trust. Previous private archival material from Leslie Buswell on the right was made available to the museum. These papers enriched the understanding of several relationships within the social group at Gloucester. Staff then developed a new Beauport Pride program in 2018. In this program, Historic New England acknowledged that sharing queer heritage can often pose more questions than it provides answers. As LGBTQ+ heritage at Beauport and other historic New England sites became more established, staff saw increased community support. And since my fieldwork, Historic New England has continued in this direction. They've even started a completely new research program where they hire independent historians, and they've called this program Recovering New England's Voices, with the intent to specifically develop more inclusive narratives across all of their sites. Thank you for the opportunity of sharing my research.
Thank you, Hillary. That's such an interesting subject. Wow, you are blowing our mind. We will be back with questions and answers after the next presentation. Now, please let me introduce to you Jeannie Seeman and Jennifer Weiss from Cred Rock Castle Historical Museum Society, Canada. Their paper is called Whose History Is It Anyway? The Challenge of Bringing a Silk Woman's Memoirs to Life Inside a Colonial Castle. Jeannie, Jennifer, the floor is yours.
We're going to start by showing you a short video.
I am drawn to, maybe even driven to, finding stories, particularly in Victoria, that have, through historical forces, time, conditioning, families, been silenced, marginalized, sidelined, erased in some cases. You do not get historical justice.
Oh my word, look at this place. Mother? Joan!
Marion Dunsmuir was thrown from a horse as a child, broke her back, and was never able to walk again, and was probably confined to a wheelchair for the rest of her life.
We get a moment where all of you guys experience these staircases, right? We really want to see that Marion has come into her family home to be greeted by 4 tiers of unscalable staircases.
Marion Dunsmuir went through a similar accident. She also fell and broke her back, and I also fell and broke my back at an early age. So being able to fit into this role, I feel was right, offering kind of the feeling of loss and trauma, but also living through that and finding resilience through that.
Marie, come look at this.
I can't find a brush.
That's all right. Look at how beautiful it is.
Oh, na. Joan! Joan! Mother!
And she, Marion Dunsmuir, also had a half First Nations, half Syilx stepdaughter.
I had already been doing a lot of my own research as a PhD student and as a master's student, looking at my own identity and being a half Syilx person as well, looking through the lens of sovereignty and who has access to what and how do I get access to places and to knowledge and to things that I don't have privileges to. And so, you know, being able to work together at uncovering both of these very important stories that affect us today, it's very important that we're working on this together.
Is that the Okanagan?
Look at that. Is it?
I don't know. We didn't have this at Fairview. Definitely not in Nanaimo.
Looks like God's country to me.
When my father first came out to BC, he got an officer's grant of land here. All the former military men did for their first time in the British Army. Goodbye, God's country. Hello, highways, hydro wires, and strip malls.
Strange, though. There ain't any animals or people in it.
No, it makes perfect sense to me. Paint it like it's empty, pretend nobody lives here, and it's easier to steal.
When it comes to oral history and oral tradition, it's important. It's the spine of our culture. It's the backbone. It's what makes us who we are. And without knowing your story and knowing who you are, you'll be lost from your culture and lost from your tradition.
Marion looked at me like I was crazy when I said that thing about you being elected was a mistake.
Well, it's the God's honest truth.
How is that even possible?
Arthur Busby, the man in charge. He screwed it up. He forgot to get nominations.
This is a unique project, I think, because it's site-specific, and also it has a certain significance to it beyond just the play itself, because of course it's dealing with part of Canada's past that we're still trying to acknowledge now, but in these specific circumstances, I don't know that this part of Canada's history as it pertains to this house, Dunsmuir Castle, Craigdarragh Castle, has yet been recognized.
I saw them, Dad. Those men, like you. They would marry Seal wives and abandon their children and Seal women as fast as they could.
Who? Wait, who are we talking about?
The Vernons.
I've told you about the Vernons.
And Mr. Greenhow. He forced his wife and daughter to move out of their home for a new wife.
Right off the property and down the road. Back onto the reduced reserves with only a cow for alimony.
This inheritance play coming in, I think is really special to see because it actually is about the Dunsmuirs. And we get to actually learn about Marion's story and see how these people from the past interact with the space. So I'm really excited to see it all come together.
And that's the same.
What you saw there was a film that we made during a week-long workshop for the play that was created by Jennifer Wise. It's a project that is sponsored by Craigdarragh Castle Historical Museum Society and aims to give voice to the memoirs of a Sealk woman, Marie Horton, seen here on the left, who was the stepdaughter of Marion, seen here on the right, who was one of the wealthy Dunsmuir family who built the castle you see here, which was completed in 1890. For me, as a Historic House Museum curator, seeing Jennifer's research brought to life through actors in the space really revealed details to me about the Dunsmuirs' lives that I had not considered in depth before. Marion's childhood injury was known, but the extent of her disability was not until Marie's memoirs were explored, and we learnt that Marion's spine was broken, likely leaving her unable to walk. As a result, we see this grand family home in a whole new light. It was built with state-of-the-art technology for the era, gas and electric lighting throughout, hot and cold running water, intercoms, burglar alarms, but apparently no accommodations made for their daughter. We saw just how difficult it is to maneuver a wheelchair inside the house, and how foreboding everything appears from the vantage point of a person confined to that chair. That accessibility issue continues to haunt us to this day as a historic house museum open to the public, but in this context, it also gives us new empathetic insight into the inhospitability of the era as a whole for disabled people. What I came to realize during this project is that the process of dramatization is research in itself, and that has made this play incredibly valuable to the Castle Society already. Our aims for this project went far beyond learning more about Marion's challenges. As part of our castle story, we have long acknowledged that as coal barons and railway magnates, the Dunsmuirs' extreme wealth came from exploitation of the land and people. Miners worked in terrible and dangerous conditions and were poorly paid for their work. Attempts to unionize were rapidly quashed by the Dunsmuirs, and in fact, the reason Marion met her husband, Charles Horton, was because he was part of a militia force that was brought in to suppress a rebellion against the Dunsmuirs in 1877. The lands that became part of the Dunsmuir coal and railway empire were largely taken from indigenous people that had lived on Vancouver Island since time immemorial. Truthfully, these are elements of the Dunsmuir story that are challenging to convey in a historic house museum filled with period room displays that are intended to show the opulence of the Gilded Age. Through this play, we experience the castle from the perspective of an Indigenous woman. It's an imagined scenario, but voiced using Marie's own words from her memoirs. And again, we see the castle and its collection in a new light. Taxidermied animals and landscape paintings of North American scenery are re-examined as cultural artifacts from Marie's lived experience, and how incongruous they must appear for someone who was likely excluded from the whole world of the castle at that time. When we acknowledge today that the castle is on the ancestral lands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, we want our visitors to gain a sense of how Indigenous lives were changed forever by the arrival of European settlers. Marie was also a visitor to these lands, having grown up in the Okanagan on the mainland. Her sense of displacement inside the castle is visceral in the play. For both Marion and Marie, then, the castle appears as a place that was not meant for them. This is the uncomfortable truth that the play has exposed. As much as we strive to make the Historic House Museum a welcoming place for our visitors, it has, by design, always excluded people. By experiencing that through the actors in this play, our audience gets a truer sense of life as it unfolded for those in and around the Dunsmuir family. This is one of our main goals in preserving the castle and its history. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, what an amazing way to end these open talks. This has been incredible. Thank you, Jenny and Jennifer. This is very much inspiring. So now we are heading to our question and answers. And as usual, we have some questions in the chat that I will be redirecting to the presenters. But if somebody wants to raise their hand and make a question by mic, please do so. Do we have any mic for questions? Timna, I think you had something.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'll put my camera on as well. So thank you both, all for fantastic presentations now. My question's in the chat, but I'll just summarize it. So Hillary, obviously, thank you again. I think it was interesting seeing you coming back to the topic of Beaufort after having heard you speak about it in 2019 when we were in Kyoto, which was so soon after when you were still deep in the research. So it probably gives you a very different point of view now coming back to it nearly 10 years later. Queering narratives in houses has become very much almost mainstream at this point, but New England is a relatively conservative community, and I'm wondering if historic New England members, like they all, have given pushback to you making these kind of, or not to you, but to the Beaufort interpreters. If how do they respond to it? How do they accept it? Do they feel that it's taking away from the more familiar narrative and story of the house?
It's great to be back, and I'm so grateful to have this community to kind of watch me through this whole journey. That's been really helpful to have all of these connections through DEMHIST. For the question, I asked all of the staff in my interviews if there were any pushback, and everybody said no, everything's been great. If anything, there's been more engagement and warmer reception. When queer people go through the tours, there's a lot of recognition, and there's been moments where people share really, really poignant stories with the staff because they're finding this site that holds the heritage to their lives. So they're finding that far more beneficial. And there really hasn't been pushback from public and stakeholders. The tricky part is that I had done a 20-year review where they had originally started queering another site, and they just kind of like plopped in a couple of, this person had same-sex relationships, a Boston marriage, and then went about their business. And the staff and the guides actually reverted to the regular narrative before all of these changes took place internally within the institution. So that's why I'm arguing that in order for these queer narratives to really rest in an integral way, there needs to be this kind of shift within the work culture so that everyone kind of comes to grapple with sexuality, no matter what house you've got or whose story you're telling. Your sexuality will impact how you're moving through the world. And once you've kind of integrated that into the narratives, then you can expand and really unpack all of these really interesting stories.
Thank you, Hilary. Thanks. Timna, are you okay with the answer? Do you have any comeback?
Absolutely. I just wanted to say thank you, and you got there first.
Okay, so in order, we're going to continue in order of the presentations, and we have a questions from Dominic Dendoven for Hilary. It says, being based in Ypres, I know Piaget Andrew from as a founder and leader of one of the most important ambulance services in the First World War in Europe, and Davis Sleeper acted as one of its fundraisers in the US. Is this fascinating World War I related history is also included in the narratives the house wants to tell? After all, a war is a highly masculine environment.
Thank you, Dominic. That story is actually told in kind of the traditional, like the regular 1 hour tours. There's a Sleeper earned, my French is terrible, but the one of the war honors from France, and that's displayed in the house, and it's one of the key sites that everybody talks about. But interestingly, Piaget Andrew participated in same-sex relationships. Sleeper did, and Leslie Buswell, whose archives were shared after the site was a queer heritage site, he was also queer. And so they all played massive roles in the ambulance service that they ran in France. So it was this huge participation that happened in the First World War that was really run by gay men at the time.
Thank you, Hilary. Just a quick question to the organization. How are we on time for questions and answers?
We were supposed to be on break, but we discussed and we can allow 5 more minutes. But
okay,
no more
okay.
5 more minutes.
Okay, in that case, I have some questions for Jenny and Jennifer. How do you balance historical accuracy with contemporary ethical considerations? This is a question that comes from us, from DEMHIST. Are you there? Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, that's fine. I've got it. I'm wondering if this is something Jennifer wants to answer, but I'll take it on and she can jump in if she wants to.
Sure.
I can't hear you, Jennifer. I think your microphone is off.
Jennifer, I tried to warn you. I think your microphone is not enabled. Now, try to click on the button with the microphone. Yeah. Now, click on it again, and it will unmute you. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. I'm happy to answer the question after Jenny speaks, but I wonder if you could clarify the question just a little bit. When you say ethical questions with historical accuracy, are you referring to the play, or are you referring to like curatorial issues?
Okay, since this is a question that came from a member of DEMHIST that is actually not here now, why don't you answer both? Both
Okay,
ways.
Jenny, why don't you answer first from the point of curatorial, and then I'll talk about that question from the point of view of creating a site historical play.
That'll be great.
Okay, great. Yeah, so obviously from a curatorial point of view, our primary aim is to share the truthful stories of the house history and the family that lived there. And from that point of view, we're very keen to make sure that people understand that this is an imagined scenario. We have no proof that Marie, the Seelk stepdaughter of Marion Horton, ever actually spent time in the castle, but it's a believable story, and so for that reason we want to expand on that as much as we can. We know that Marion, even though she was married by the time the castle was completed, we know that she did come here, and in fact she died here in the castle. So we know that she spent time there, and that's really what was interesting to me from the storytelling perspective of this play, was how does a disabled person live in a castle that's got 4 flights of stairs, 87 steps, and there's really no way in without having to climb those stairs. So there was a lot to learn from doing the play, just in terms of moving around in the space. And I have to say, it reminds me of Frankie's keynote speech yesterday, where he talked about one-night stands in historic houses. This having actors in the space dramatizing what we believe are real events really helps you to understand how people lived in the castle, how the space was used by the family at the time. So from that point of view, I found it a very valuable and very truthful experience.
From the point of view of creating a site-specific historical play, the ethical issues are much more complicated, actually, and they have they've proved so far almost insoluble, to be honest, since I'm sharing here, because we wanted, in the name of historical accuracy, I wanted to use verbatim text throughout the play. And luckily there was enough text pretty well to write a whole play using the actual words of the people involved. However, although they are true to the time when they were spoken and read and written, there are sensitivities and ideological disputes today amongst SEAL band members that make some of those historically accurate statements too controversial and uncomfortable for many of the people involved. And I'll just give a quick example so you know what I'm talking about. For example, Marie Houghton, who's the main speaker in the play, loved studying with the nuns at residential school. That was the highlight of her life, learning to play the piano, learning to read and write, and become a very literate historian, actually, because she became a historian for her people. But today, to have a SEAL a woman speak about her love for the Catholic nuns at residential school is a very controversial and uncomfortable statement to hear in public today, because of the legacy of residential schools and the suffering that they brought upon many of the people who studied there. And so that's just one example of how ethical and historical accuracy issues are very much in conflict, actually, in an issue such as this, in a story such as this.
Thank you very much. This is definitely inspiring, and what a way to our conversation. We have used all the time for questions and answers, but please do check the public chat. There are some comments, there are some congratulations for you three, and from the part of DEMHIST, thank you very much for being here today. Thank you, Hilary, Jenny, Jennifer. It has been an honor to be your moderator, so please be again here in next DEMHIST activities. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Now I'll pass back the mic to Caroline.
We will take a 10-minute break again, and then be back for our gamification with Giusy and Flora. So 10-minute break.
Okay, so I hope the disadvantage of only having the speaker with the camera on is that I can't see who's actually connected, but I hope everyone is here and active. So welcome to the last session of Open Talks 2025. I've been having a fantastic time. I hope all of you have as well. We are now going to go into an interactive game that has been prepared by two DEMHIST interns who have been working under the tutelage of Caroline at Versailles. And I have to say that they have really made such a difference to DEMHIST activities over this past year. So thank you to Giusy Guerriero and Flora Chardon. And we're going to pass the stage over to the two of you so you can explain what you are plotting for us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Giusy. Thank you, Timna, for the introduction. And then we will explain how to join this platform. So, step one, take a look at the chat. You will find a link, or you can scan the QR code with your telephone. Step two, to join, you have two options. No, you can click on the link and enter just the link, and then you can scan the QR code on the screen with your camera, and it will take you straight there. Step three, no need to log in. It only takes a few seconds, so it's really simple. Just type your name or nickname, whatever you like, and have fun with it. If you are already on your phone, just tap the link, or if you are at your computer, feel free to join us with your scanning your QR code. I will give you a few seconds to do setup, and if you're having any trouble, just let us know in the chat. We are here to help. So remember, no pressure. This is all about having fun and sharing ideas. So let's start with a quick multiple choice quiz. We got 3 questions for you, all related to topics we explored during day 1 of these open talks. So let's see how's been paying attention. So the first question is, during his keynote speech, Franklin Vagnone offered an alternative to rigid national narratives. Which one was it? Collaborative imagination, allegorical interpretation, community-based narrative, or inclusive communication? So take your time. I will give you a few seconds to answer and trust your memory. If you remember, Franklin talked about how historic houses aren't just buildings, they're storytellers. He introduced the idea of the answer of the question, interpretation, where each room, each object might carry a hidden message or emotion. His talk really challenged the traditional museum approach, and so let's see if you caught the part. And don't forget, you'll be able to watch this full keynote on DEMHIST YouTube channel and on the official website soon, of course. Stop. Okay. So that was a tricky one. The correct answer was the allegorical interpretation. So, but voila. It's interesting. The second one is the Christchurch Castle, Victoria, Canada, whose the voice was amplified after being silenced for decades. The voices of the domestic servants, the voices of the first settlers, the voices of native women, the voices of the local community. Jenny and Jennifer brought us into this castle in Canada and showed how they're working to give space to indigenous voices without a colonial setting. Do you remember the story of Silix woman's memoir? They also talk about accessibility and collaboration that might help you think through the question. And again, the presentation will be up on the DEMHIST website if you want to explore it further. So the correct answer this time was the voices of Native women. So interesting. That's a nice job. In fact, some of you clearly took notes. Well played. So what's next? When was the House of Chaplain first transformed into a museum? 1990, 2004, 1767, 1956. Elena took us on a journey through a 18th century building in Mexico City. And emphasized how archival work can reveal forgotten or silence the histories. She invited us to think about how religious, political, and social layers shape the identity of a space over time. If you remember that, you might feel more confident in your answer. Okay. Okay. Nice job. That was a sneaky detail from the day, but you made it. So let's go ahead with the second part of this gamification. You are about to see a painting by Pablo Picasso, Portrait of Dora Maar. So you have to choose the two themes you believe are the most relevant when interpreting this artwork. Do you see it as an objective analysis of the painting or a reflection of Picasso's revolutionary role in the art world? Or you might see the violence and misogyny his poses and mistresses allegedly had to face, or maybe a tribute to how each of his muses shaped and evolved his style. This is not a test. It's all about your perspective. So you can select only the option, and that's all. I remember art is layered just like history. So what layers do you see here? Okay. Interesting. Yes. I see we have a variety of perspective, and that's exactly what we were hoping for. So that's good. Now the third part of this gamification. Finally, let's hear your voices. We'd like to ask a few open-ended questions to hear what ideas or reflection you're taking away from this section. Here the first question is: are house museums subject to ethics? Do you agree or not? That's the question. I strongly agree. Okay. There is one person strongly disagree. Okay. That's a very powerful point. Thank you for sharing. But looks like most of you agree, so it's a lot. It's a strong consensus. So the next question is: in your opinion, what are the social roles of house museums? So we have to think of how this space impact communities, education or inclusion. Are they place of memory, dialogue, identity? Different themes that we have. If you want, you could, this is a perfect moment for us to reflect and talk together. So you can turn out your mic and camera if you feel like sharing something, maybe a comment or a thought that came to mind during the session, or even just a reaction. So feel free to raise your hand, and if you like to speak or type your questions and comments in the chat, we are here. It's a perfect moment to share. Okay. There's sides of identity that open doors into an understanding the past, education, inclusion, memory of every kind to allow them enjoy the heritage and make it accessible, also to get engaged with other institutions, professionals and social agents. So we make heritage and history a common enterprise, collective spaces of community, memory, education, emotional, communal, preservation of memories, educational. House museums are places for dialogue, for education. Okay. We'll see that the word education and common spaces, it's used a lot. Education, the past generation to inspire our world. Education, identity, memory. Yeah. It's so interesting, and let's go ahead with another question. Do you think house museums have control over their own narrative, or they need to conform to a national one? It's possible to have the cases where a museum's told a very optional story or resisted it. Or what kind of independence should this institution have? It's a really tricky question, but we are curious about your answers. Let's see. So, depends on their status or organizator. We should have total control over our narratives. They should have control over their own narrative, but some countries' regime means that the cultural narrative must walk a fine line of independence and national conformity. They should be able to evolve narratives in response to changing community needs and larger social questions. It is difficult to have control, but they should. Not really. We have to follow many times the policy of our government about certain issues. In other case we have full freedom. Yes. Okay. It's not easy to balance, as I said, but it's a crucial debate. So 50-50. Museums must have control of the narratives they want to work with, but balance is necessary. Yes. So the next up, looking back at the 2025 open talks, what will you take away with you? Which ideas, convinced you or inspired you the most? Was there a speaker or a project or a moment that stayed with you? Or what might you apply to your own work or research? So let's see. So let's see the answers. I'm inspired to be open for more artistic approaches and projects. There is no such thing as a house with a single narrative. It is our mission to uncover the layers and find and give room to the different voices. Yes. Sharing, understanding, self-respect to others, engage with communities, but keeping true to the original narrative. It's pretty difficult, but it's correct. Our museum are ideal exhibition organizations to combine different narratives because a diversity of stories are connected to their historic and present development. Diversity and a grateful feeling that we are so many sharing the same passion for our museum. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and the last question. What are your suggestions to allow parallel narratives to coexist in house museums? What tools, methods, or approaches can help? Or what would you like to see more of as a visitors or a professional, for example? So you have 2 minutes. Let's see. By using technologies available today, displays can combine more than one narrative and flow of information. Yes, open the museum app for community narrative, invite community groups to share their stories and history. Hear them all and don't judge from your personal point of view. Of course, to integrate public perception in addition to testing content with staff. Okay, these ideas are incredible, practical, and brave also. So, I will invite you.
Okay, so thank you so much, Flora and Giusy. That was a great way to sum up the last couple of days. Keep our grey cells working as we try and remember everything that we've learned, seen what we have absorbed, and thinking about how we can now take that information and consolidate it and move it forward. Can we lose the screen so we can see? Can we have everyone's cameras on and see everybody? Anyway, okay, so this is the point where I am happy to open the floor if anyone has anything that they want to say rather than writing in the chat. So I'm just going to ask if anyone wants to say something, please either raise your hand with the button or put in the chat. If not, I'm going to keep moving forward. Okay, it's the final people who've managed to last 3 hours yesterday, 3 hours today. Well done. I know it's been very intense. I know that my brain's kind of fried. So I'm going to say now, so thank you so much, all of you, for your stimulating and knowledgeable presentations and videos. It's clear that the topic such as parallel narratives is very complex and multifaceted. and how we understand the stories in layers and where they overlap with historical events and social movements are things that we all have to consider, and we need to relate to them as we move forward in our museum professions. It's also clear that there is no single path or modus of interpretation, and that is what makes this profession so challenging and so engaging. And I hope that, as with last year's topic, we have opened the door to future discussion and just started investigating the parallel narratives and the way that these relate back to last year's subject of house museums and communities. And we now start thinking about what will be our topic for Open Talks 2026. Keep it in mind. So Caroline has prepared a short video based on yesterday's word cloud. Would you like to show it now or when we finish?
As you wish.
Okay,
We're
so I'm
ready
going to
to,
finish.
so
Okay, you know something? So I'm going to finish talking and then we can go to the word cloud.
all right.
Okay, all right. But I think in that case, I do want to have the screen with our upcoming dates. Yeah, no. Upcoming dates, yeah. Can we share that? Okay, so just to make sure you get all these dates in your minds, because some of them are very, very close to us. As you know, as I hope all of you know, the ICOM Triennial General Conference will be held in November in Dubai. The call for papers is currently open until the 22nd of June. So we have DEMHIST, we have 2 paper sessions. The House Museum as a Witness to the Contemporary World, and Adornment and Identity in Spatial Design and Objects, which will be a shared session with ICOM Design, what used to be ICDAD, the committee dealing with interior design and adornment. Can we put in the chat the website for the conference so that people who can connect to it? And then also connected to the conference, we have on the 31st of July is the deadline for our travel grants. This year, the young members travel grant, because as always with the triennial conferences, is being run through ICOM Central rather than through the committees. So we don't have that grant, but we do have a DEMHIST members travel grant, which is for someone who will be making a presentation. And we are not looking at your age. We're saying this is for a DEMHIST member who is engaged and committed and needs help financially making their way to Dubai. And we also have the DEMHIST Jean Watson bursary, which I think the age limit is 35. Cecilia can maybe correct me if I'm wrong. So those 2 travel grants are open until the 31st of July. They are dependent. Put in the call for papers, put in your request for the travel grant, but the selection of the travel grant will be dependent on your paper being accepted. The other important deadline coming up is we are opening the call for Conference 2026. Shortly after, in the next few days, the application form will be updated on our website. And if you think that you would like to host the DEMHIST conference for 2026, please be in touch with us. You can be in touch with us before submitting the application. Talk to us, we can help you make that application more precise and correct, unlike the words I'm speaking at the moment. So those are our upcoming deadlines. And I would like to say a huge thank you to Palais Versailles and Trianon for allowing us to use their video hosting platform. So thank you so much. Thank you, Caroline, for facilitating that. A big round of applause to the Open Talks team, to Caroline Gaillard, Cecilia Casas Desantes, Milia Stichovic, Flora Chardon, the whole of the DEMHIST board, all of the presenters, and to you, the participants who have been with us over these 2 days, and those of you who have been moderators. So thank you, all of you. Thank you so much. I'm going to see if we can do this. Yes, put the mics on and clap. So thank you so much, everybody. And I hope that as many of you as possible will make it to Dubai in November. The conference will be hybrid, so even if you are unable to make it, you will be able to join many of the sessions. It promises to be a very interesting conference. It's an unusual place for us as house museums and the heritage professionals to try to work out how do we really connect to this city, which is based so much on looking into the future. But there is a lot there which also deals with the past and ways to look at the past with futuristic eyes. So I think it will be a very interesting conference. And I think with that, let's go to our closing video and keep an eye on social media over the next few days, because we will be seeing clips, videos, reels from the open talks coming up over there. Roberto does wonderful work with that with the help of Caroline and Cecilia. And I think we are done. And I say this is it. Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you, Caroline. Let's see that video. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I don't know how you make these videos every time, but they're fantastic.
It's magic.
We actually have a little goblin helping us with everything, but they are hidden in Versailles. They are hidden somewhere in Versailles. So it's magic.
Thank you, everybody. I need to go. I apologize.
Thank you. See you soon. See you in Dubai. See you in the General Assembly of the end of the year, okay, for the DEMHIST members. And thank you so much for always being in contact, for participating, for engaging. And remember, we are here and you can contact us anytime.
Thank you so much, Cecilia, and everyone, and Timna, and Milia, and have a nice evening. And thank you, Giusy and Flora.